On today's episode, we are going to be doing some thrift flips. I just heard of a new thrift store. I don't know if it's brand new or if it's just new to me. We're going to head over there now, see what we can find. All right, we are here, and from what I'm seeing outside, I am so excited to go in. So let's go see what we can find. Look at all of these street signs. I feel like that would be so cute for a teen bedroom. Could we do something fun with those cabinet doors? They're really pretty. Scary. A lot of antiques here. So we are back from our thrifting adventures, and that store was really fun. It had a lot of cool things. Shopping a store like that, however, it does tend to be a little bit more expensive. You do pay a little bit of a premium, but sometimes you can find really cool items, and I did just that. And one of those items is going to turn out to be probably one of my favorite flips I've ever done, and that's saying a lot. Another one of those had me questioning my judgment, so you'll have to stay tuned for that one. But let's get started with our first flip, which is a floor lamp done two ways. So we're gonna do it one way and then we're gonna do it another. So I wasn't a huge fan of the base of this. I just felt like it was black, but it had like some brushed on gold that looked like it had been hand done. So the first thing I did is kind of tape everything I could off, take it outside and sprayed on a flat black spray paint, gave it a nice blank slate. So after that was dry, I came in, added a new shade. Well, it was new, but it was thrifted. I thrifted this shade about a year or two ago, and it's just been sitting in a closet for $4. It looked perfect on this lamp. So if you're looking for more of like a regular lamp, floor lamp, this one looks really good, don't you think? I thought this was spectacular, but when I saw this floor lamp, I could not get out of my mind a street lamp. And that's kind of like a running theme on my channel. I have done a lot of street lamp DIYs, but I've never done a legit street lamp, and I just couldn't get it out of my mind. So that's what we're gonna do for our version number 2. So for version number 2, the first thing we're gonna do is remove that shade that we just put on and totally disassemble the top portion of the lamp, take off the harp, unscrew the nut, get everything kind of disassembled on that top portion. We even cut the light bulb section off with some wire cutters and just clip the cord. And I know that that is gonna seem scary and crazy to some of you. And I've actually never done this, but it turned out to be way easier than I thought. And then I reassembled it without the harp and all of that, the light fixture. And I kind of tried it on, and it was still gonna be too tall. The little rod was gonna stick out too much, and it was gonna not work for our official street lamp. So what I did is disassembled, took out that pipe that runs in the middle that holds the wire in it, pulled it all out, and I needed to cut out a 1.5 inch section of that pipe. I couldn't do it right off the top because I needed the threads for the nut to kind of hold everything all together. So my thought is I just got some pipe cutter. It's a little tool that I had in my arsenal that my husband uses and I use. And all you do is you attach it to the rod, kind of line it up with like a little blade, and you tighten it, and you keep spinning it around and around and around and around and around, and tightening it a little bit at a time. As it gets a little bit looser, you tighten it a little bit until ultimately the pipe cuts. And I had to do that twice to get out that 1.5 inch section. And then to reattach it, I kind of cheated because I didn't want to go to the home improvement store and get a flange. I didn't want to get pipe fitting stuff and go to all of that trouble. That honestly is probably the proper way to do it, or getting a new rod altogether. So I cheated. And I got a little Gorilla duct tape. I thought it would work out fine for what we were doing. Basically, I figured once we tightened up that nut, it would give it enough pressure that it would be okay. So I threaded the wire back through that rod, twisted it back into place, got our nut back on the top, twisted it really tight, and got it back to new. Make sure that the wire is sticking out that rod, and we don't want it to pull back down because, you know, if you yank on that cord, there's nothing really holding it into place. So I found a tutorial by my good friend Leah from CJ Drill. We're real life friends. She's amazing and she is so full of knowledge. And she taught me how to do an underwriter's knot. I think that's what it's called. So I followed her tutorial of how to make that knot, and I will link it in the description box below. And the idea of doing this knot is really important because that will prevent it. If somebody like yanked on the cord, it won't like yank our wire back through that rod and cause us issues down the road. So doing that knot is really important. With that knot in place, we are now ready to hardwire a lamp post top to the top of our new floor lamp. You just match up the wires, twist them together. I'm not an electrician, so I don't want to give you too much tutorial on this. It did work out fantastically. You screw it together, and then you take electrical tape and tape over the top of them. There was a ground wire that I also put a cap on and put some electrical tape around all of those, just securing them together. And then with it hardwired, you slip the top of that post cap right over the top of our floor lamp base. And it just so happened that it was the right thickness, the right size. It couldn't have been more perfect. I ordered this lamp post top off of Amazon for, I believe it was $39. And then all I did was tighten up the screws on the side of the post cap, and that just kind of clinches it right into our floor lamp base. And then I took a candle light bulb, screwed that in, and then put on our top. Now, if you remember, we clipped off our light kit on the top, and that's usually how you turn a light like this on and off. And so you might be asking yourself, am I going to have to unplug it and replug it in every time I want to turn it on and off? And my solution for this is the same solution that I have for some wall sconces I have on my wall that are not hardwired in. And I have found these plug-ins that are remote control operated. I just plugged it into that, and you can just turn it on and off with a remote control. And so therefore, once it's plugged in, we don't have to worry about it. But oh my word, this might be one of my favorite thrift flips of all time because it is so cool. It is a legit street lamp. Now, it's not super tall, but it is a really cute size. I might take this outside. I may leave it right where it's at. I think it is so adorable, and the base of it really looked like a street lamp, and now the top matches the base. The finish is matched up. I'm thrilled, to say the least, and I think I have maybe $60 into this lamp all said and done, only because the lamp was about $20 to begin with. And then of course we spent about $39 or so on that topper. I don't know, which version did you like better, the traditional floor lamp or this street lamp version? I'm just gonna say hands down, street lamp wins for me, but the other one looked really good too. I love that as well. So next up, I found this, I don't know what it is. It's like a wood spindle. I don't know if it was attached to a bed or what it was attached to at one point. It was attached to something because it had these big giant holes on the side, but it was only $1.50, and I thought I could make something really cool out of this. So the first thing we did is took it outside and cut down the bottom of it to be a little bit shorter and get rid of those little random, I don't know, pieces of wood at the bottom and give us a nice flush bottom. And then I also had some scrap wood left over from another project where I cut down to cover up those giant holes on the side because I didn't want to fill it with like a ton of putty. I just thought that would take forever to dry, then it would cave in, it would just be kind of a hassle, and I just thought there would be a better way. And it just so happened that the wood trim that I had already had some pre-drilled holes in it. I thought that would work out good. I wouldn't recommend it. If you find yourself in this situation, just go with a solid piece of wood. It will be a little bit easier when you get to that point. I also cut down a couple of strips of wood to kind of match it all the way around where we were going to be attaching that to kind of give it a decorative element. Then I pulled out my nail gun and my wood glue, and we wood glued the pieces with the holes on first, and then we took some finish nails and nailed that in to cover up those giant holes. I did that on both sides, and then on the front and the back I just took a couple of pieces of the same trim without a hole in it and wood glued and nailed that into place. I did the base, I kind of crisscrossed, found center, kind of traced out where we wanted our spindle to sit on our base, glued it on, and nailed that into place. And then after the fact, it was a rectangle base. I meant to run it in the other direction, but once it was on, I was like, oh, you know, it's not a big deal really. So I just left it as is. And then I used a 3/4 inch wood boring bit to make that hole larger. And honestly, this would have worked out better if there was no hole to begin with. So my idea of it working out good, it just wasn't a good idea. Just start with a solid piece of wood because it was really hard to kind of match that center up and get that to be the size of hole that we needed it to be. If we would have just started with a fresh piece of wood, it would have worked out a little bit better, but we did get the job done and made our hole large enough for our wood dowel. So I had this 3/4 inch wood dowel sitting in my stash, cut it in half, and then we took some wood glue and glued that on either end and shoved it into our holes. And then while I was gluing everything, I just kind of filled in all these cracks and crevices just to make the paint adhere better and just kind of fill some of those gaps in. And I went kind of crazy. Once we had those dowels sticking in the side, I hot glued with some Gorilla hot glue, which is really strong stuff, some little wood finials to the end of each one of those dowels to just finish it off. After we attached the wood finials, I also attached a hook on the front and the back. This is a jewelry holder, so it will be a good place to hang some jewelry and maybe other decorative elements. And then I painted out everything that was raw wood in a brown finish to kind of just make it all match and keep it consistent, and you'll see why that's important in just a second. And then after that was dry, I did several coats of white chalk paint and got a nice opaque white finish and let that dry. And then once that was fully dry, I kind of distressed everything out, and that was the reason I did the brownish, just so that when I distressed it, it would be consistent underneath. And that's it. I put a little decorative mini wreath on it just to kind of add a little personality. But we can hang necklaces on it. We can hang bracelets on it. It's got a lot of possibilities. I think it looks really cute out on my fireplace mantle with some of my other elements here in my bedroom. And it's just a really cute piece. All said and done, I probably have $5 into it, and I just love how it turned out. It's a really cute jewelry organizer. So my next piece is this kind of swamp thing decorative box. I could tell that it had really good bones, but I was not digging this like swamp thing monster painted finish on it, but I knew that it had potential. And the very first thing I did is take this sage chalk paint. Now when I say sage, I usually think of green, but this is definitely kind of like a bluish green, and I did 2 really good coats on the entire thing except for the inside, because the inside was a really pretty gold color and I left that alone. And you'll see why that gold will work really well in our finished piece, because once those couple coats of blue-green was dried, I went back in with some Grecian gold rub and buff with my finger and just very lightly dusted over some of those decorative elements on the box. I had some like fleur-de-lis kind of feeling to it, and I just very lightly hit that, and on the finial on the top I did a little bit, just very delicately, and it totally transformed this box into something that was very kind of dated, to say the least, and kind of swampy looking, to a very beautiful French feeling decorative box that's going to look fabulous in my living room. I think that it turned out so cute. It looks so high-end, and I'm kind of partial to it. Okay, so for this next thrift flip, it totally had me questioning my judgment on why I bought it in the first place. First of all, when I got it home, I opened it up, and I don't know why I didn't like look it over better in the thrift store. But I opened it up and I realized that it is just filled with dirt and grime and just grossness. Now, when I saw it, like, it kind of gave me a nostalgic feeling of like an old lobster trap in Maine, like just kind of like maybe a small miniature sized version of it. So I was like, well, maybe I can do something kind of nautical with it. But when I opened that up, I was just so grossed out. I didn't even bring it inside until I hosed it off and set it by the pool to dry out completely before I was gonna bring it into my house. The first thing I tried to do is just do a little antiquing glaze over it. I just thought, well, maybe I can just freshen up the finish and maybe I'll like it once I do that. I didn't. I was just not feeling this. I was like, why did I buy this? I think it was just that nostalgia and the thought of maybe being able to do this and put it in our vacation rental in home. If you haven't watched my channel, we lived in Maine for 7 years or so. We still have a home there that we Airbnb and act as a vacation rental. And I got it because I was thinking, well, this would be fun, a little fun piece to take out there the next time we are there. After I did the glaze, I was like, oh, I'm just not feeling this. Do I even continue on? But I decided to, and so I took it outside and did several coats of white spray paint with all of the nooks and crannies and all of the different things. I just thought spray paint was the way to go. Now, I had mentioned I wanted to do a nautical feel, and so what I decided to do is I kind of kept going back and forth whether I wanted to add like an anchor look, or if I wanted to just really embrace this lobster trap inspired box, and that's what I had in my head. And so I went to my Cricut machine and cut out both an anchor and a lobster out of some wood on the Cricut Maker 3. Now, this is not sponsored by them, but I thought it was really handy to do this in this situation. So after our paint dried, I held up the anchor, and then I held up the lobster. And I know it's a little kitschy, but I decided to go with a lobster. I'm like, why not just go for it? I know exactly where this is gonna go in my home in Maine. I have a very fun nautical room in my main home that this will look super cute in. So I painted out the lobster red, glued it to the front of our box, kind of on an angle, and then I kind of distressed the whole thing. So for the final finishing touch on this box, we are going to reattach some nautical rope. I'm just gonna knot it like it was originally and had frayed or been cut off, or I'm not quite sure what happened to the original rope. The finished project, while it's a little kitschy, granted, I think it's really adorable, and I think it's gonna look really fantastic. I know exactly where it's gonna go in our home in Maine, and I can't wait to put it there. In the meantime, here's a little look at what it looks like. I just love how it turned out. A little quirky, but very cute. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. And if you haven't done so already, consider hitting that subscribe button. right here. It's super easy to do, and I would love it if you joined the DIY Niner family. And to all of my DIY Niners, once again, I just want to remind you that you are more powerful than you know. We'll see you next time. Bye.